Joining me now is Newsweek's senior editor-at-large, Josh Hammer. Josh, Elon Musk has been busy catching rockets and talking politics, and this little anecdote he tells about a voter who tried to show his ID shows just how crazy the system is in America and why so many people have little faith in the integrity of elections.
A friend of mine went to vote in Palo Alto in California because he was like, is this real or not? And he like tried to show his ID, and it was like presenting a cross to a vampire. Like, they're like, no, put the ID away.
Josh, polls show that the majority of Americans, not just the majority of Republicans, support voter ID. Why are the Democrats so dead set against the idea?
So, Rita, first of all, I actually voted early. I'm wearing my little sticker here. I'm wearing my voted early sticker. I actually went to the local poll here in Florida, and I voted just about 3 hours before I'm talking to you. So for any Americans out there in the audience, I would strongly encourage you to do what I did and to go and vote early. There is no reason to leave this to Election Day. Now, personally, Rita, my own personal opinion on this is that I think it should be only one Election Day. Make it a national holiday if you have to. I don't like this whole early voting thing, but as long as that's the rule here in America, I intend to take advantage of it. On the voter ID thing, because 3 hours ago when I voted in Florida, I showed up with my voter ID, and it was basically a cakewalk. I have no good reason as to why Democratic elites, and here's the key point, it really is only Democratic elites. This is an issue that polls like 75 to 25, 70, 30, depends how exactly you want to do it, but a majority of Hispanics, a majority of Black Americans, there is really no demographic subgroup in America that I am aware of where a majority does not support voter ID legislation. Because walking around here in the United States, you need a voter ID to do basically anything. You want to go into a government building to get a marriage certificate, or you want to talk about your taxes, whatever, you need to show your voter ID. You want to go buy a case of alcohol, a bottle of vodka, tequila, whatever, you need an ID. You want to board an airplane, you need an ID. It makes no sense whatsoever that you would not need an ID to do something as powerful, as important as actually choosing the direction of the fate of our republic. And I can think of no reason, frankly, to oppose this other than that you actually want illegal aliens to vote. You actually want fraud. I have to conclude that actually is the reason, Rita. I'm trying not to be cynical here, but I cannot think of another reason. I just can't.
Josh, you're so right. As you said, the overwhelming majority of Americans support voter ID. So why would the Democrats be so against it unless there is some dishonest reason? Why wouldn't you want to boost confidence in elections when that confidence has really fallen in recent years? Now, it is also becoming increasingly clear that the Democrats have a big problem with male voters, white male voters, Black, Hispanic, it's across the board. And how are they addressing this issue? Well, they're sending Tim Walz to The View. And predictably, he was asked no tough questions, no had any of his outlandish claims I don't know, fact-checked?
Right now, right-wingers are coming after you for how you handle your shotgun.
Well, I can shoot better than all of them. I got the trophies to prove it.
What do you think? Is this interview going to boost their chances with male voters? And what is the answer to that problem? Because it's obviously one they're grappling with.
Yeah, I think for every second that Tim Walz sat down on that set with the not so very fine ladies of The View, he was probably losing testosterone in real time, frankly. So, if they're trying to make inroads with the male voters that they have clearly alienated, by the way, the media, Rita, speaking of the media, they also misrepresent this gender gap here in the 2024 election. They talk all the time about how Republicans have a women problem, and they usually blame it on the abortion issue. They never talk about this. They never talk about the fact that men are going to vote for Trump over Kamala Harris at a historic rate. And part of that is because they're not willing to actually be introspective and to look into the mirror a little bit and ask some very difficult, poignant questions as to why that might be the case. First of all, I think you have to look at the transgender issue, the whole notion of gender ideology. The overwhelming majority of men in America are not down for that. I don't think the majority of women are down for that either. It definitely is not something that men want to hear when you try to tell them that if you feel like a woman, you can actually be a woman. How about just good old school fashioned common sense about trying to instill virtues in men, trying to get men to be protectors of the home, to marry young and to have children and to raise family. All of the great virtues that men who are trained in those virtues have been able to rise to over the centuries. The Democratic Party in its current form has no interest in this whatsoever. They are solely interested in demasculating men out there. I don't know exactly how they get themselves out of this because they're really in it pretty deep at this point. But at a bare minimum, a good place to start be to stop with all the DEI woke nonsense, because the entire current paradigm through which the left operates here in America, and I guess the Western world more generally, when you talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, wokeism, it all ends up being basically a war against men, against whites, Christians, and really white Christian men above all. And unless and until the Democratic Party stops these explicitly racist, anti-white, explicitly anti-male, sexist policies, I don't think that you're going to see those kind of voters go back anytime soon. What happened to the good old-fashioned Martin Luther King Jr. sentiment, judge me not by the color of my skin or my genitalia structure, if I can extrapolate? How about we just judge everyone based on the content of their character and their individual merit? That would be a better America, I think.
Well, they're very dirty words these days, Josh. Things have moved along in progressive circles. Even the word merit is got all sorts of connotations for those folk. Kamala Harris, though, she is succeeding in not just alienating male voters, but you've got to wonder how much longer can the Jewish community so strongly back the Democrats? Have a look at this interaction at a campaign event where she agrees with a crazed protester accusing Israel of genocide. Just look at the short video of this.
So 2,000 people dead, 19,000 children are dead. You gotta call them 19,000 children are dead. You won't call them genocide. I love you.
So, listen, what he's talking about, it's real. And so that's not the subject that I came to discuss today, but it's real, and I respect his voice.
Naturally, the Harris Walls campaign wants you to not to believe your lying eyes or ears. They're denying that she agreed with the protester, but it's there on the tape. You heard in that clip, he accused Israel of genocide. He used that word. He then said they are responsible for 19,000 children being dead, and she agreed with him. Again, how is it that so many in the Jewish community continue to back the Democrats, even when they show that community where they stand on this critical issue?
Rita, you're bringing up here a topic that I have been yelling about and ranting about since I was in middle school or high school. This has always been one of my lifelong pet peeves, is how politically stupid and self-hating the American Jewish community is. Now, it's worth noting that the American Jewish community is actually something of an international outlier when it comes to voting for the party of the left. So I defer to you. I could be wrong on this, but I think that historically the Australian Jewish community tends to vote for the right of center party. That is definitely true for the most part in recent elections in the UK and Britain. It's definitely true in Canada. Israel, by far the biggest Jewish population, is clearly a right of center country these days. So America is something of an outlier, tragically. I think that there are numerous reasons for this. Part of it is actually the metastasis of a deeply theologically progressive strand of Judaism, Reform Judaism here in the United States, which is really not particularly popular outside of America in the world. But when you look at Jewish voters, when they tell pollsters what issues they most care about, Rita, I mean, it basically reads like satire or parody. I mean, a plurality of Jewish voters are citing issues like climate change, immigration, justice, abortion on demand. It's galling. The percentage of my fellow Jews here in America who actually vote on what we might call Jewish issues, whether it is support for Israel, whether it is religious liberty, First Amendment values more generally, it's much lower than it should be. Now, thank God that actually is starting to slowly change for demographic reasons, if nothing else, because religious Jews have more children, they have more families, they tend to be more politically conservative. So I think that this whole conversation is actually going to look a lot different, God willing, 10 to 15 years from now. But for now, unfortunately, Kamala Harris is probably not going to lose a ton of voters when it comes to this particular exchange, because the kind of people that are voting for her don't really care very much about this particular issue. Having said that, I do predict Donald Trump's going to probably win about 40% of the Jewish vote, 38 to 40% if I had to put a number. That would actually be the highest percentage since Ronald Reagan. It's still less than 50%. Still have a lot of work to do there, but that would be a pretty good result overall.
Now, before you go, I've got to get your thoughts on Donald Trump doing a stint at McDonald's. The Democrats are losing their mind over this. The left-wing media are losing their mind over this. They're busy telling us that it was a media stunt. He didn't really work a shift, as if anybody thinks a billionaire and presidential candidate is actually working shifts at McDonald's. They're feeling the need to fact check this. Tell me about the merits of what he did, and was it worth it?
Oh, this was absolutely brilliant. This was political mastery. I mean, whoever had this idea is an absolute rock-ribbed genius. I mean, what we saw there, this photo of Donald Trump in the McDonald's apron, looking out the window, waving, smiling to whoever he had just served the Happy Meal or the Big Mac to. I mean, that instantaneously has become, in my estimation, the second most iconic photo of the entire 2024 presidential cycle, only after Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, with the bloody face, raising the fist with the American flag. That's an all-time historical photo, but this is honestly like not a very distant second. This is a pretty close second. It's just genius stuff. Kamala Harris, maybe a week or two ago, was talking about how she worked in McDonald's and they couldn't find the record. So Donald Trump says, you know what? I'm just going to go work at McDonald's. And most important, he looked like he was enjoying it. He's either a fantastic liar, like an Oscar-winning actor, or he was actually enjoying it. I think it's the latter. I think he looked like he was probably really enjoying it. He thrives in this setting of actually interacting with real blue-collar, in-the-flesh Americans. And that kind of gets ultimately at Donald Trump's appeal, which is, yes, he is the Fifth Avenue New York City billionaire. He's also a man of the people. He is fundamentally what I refer to time and time again as a class traitor to the ruling class from which he comes. Yes, he has elite credentials. He went to the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. He's worth oodles and oodles of money, but his heart, his sentiments, and his general worldview are not with the coastal elites here in America. They really are with the country class, with the people there in the river valleys, in the Midwest, and the South, and the Mountain West, and whatnot there. That is why I think he's going to win this election. It is McDonald's serving Big Macs just like this that I genuinely do think are going to deliver the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and therefore the presidency to Donald Trump come November 5th.
Josh Hammer, thank you so much for your time this evening.